Christ. The key objectives you can see there, these were the objectives originally discerned from the original brainstorming session, and the team that was charged to execute this has, certainly moved through these objectives and probably has uncovered some additional ones. The second God-sized dream was we serve our neighbors. Westminster leads in responding to community needs through social engagement, outreach, and volunteerism. Now, we always were very strong in outreach, so this was kind of just I'll say a vaccine in the arm to move it further along. And again, the key objectives here, just to increase our impact of the community outreach, basically was the key component here, along with the other objectives that you see there. The third God-sized dream that was discerned was to work towards affordable housing in Chester County. The idea being that Westminster would take a leadership role within the community to ensure that no one is forced to live in substandard, unsafe housing or experience homelessness. Obviously, this is one that involves many, many different community outreach groups. Ruth and I will go into some of that as we go through our home team piece. But to be a catalyst and facilitator for developing these affordable housing programs. This is not something that Westminster really can do, totally by themselves, but we can certainly be a catalyst. And the final one was to equip our emerging generation, where we actively engage in youth and young adults. It was important to have the young adults in there on their faith journey as they start their adult life. And again, you see some of the key objectives there that were discerned back in 2018. So at this point, I guess that was kind of just a brief introduction of the process and what we came out of the process with. This culminated, as I said, in probably in a report, not probably, but in a report in September of 2018. And then from that point, we had introduction to the congregation of the final outline, and then we had execution committees formed that began their work in January of 2019 effectively. So I'm going to switch gears because I think I'm going to go into the home teams piece here. So let me see if I can do that. Okay. Everybody see that okay? So the home team, again, as I just said, we all started this journey in 2019 in terms of the execution.
Gary, we didn't get your home team up.
Oh, that's interesting. All right, let me stop sharing and start over.
Yeah.
All right, how's that? How about now?
Yeah, now it's there.
Okay, good. So as I said, we started in 2019. I'm going to try to review a couple of the accomplishments or at least the ideas that we've been working on in 2019 and 2020. 2020 was obviously a curtailed year in terms of activities because a lot of what the home team, as I said, needs to do is collaborate with other people within the county, and a lot of those organizations were effectively shut down most of 2020, as you might imagine. Nevertheless, we did accomplish some things and are moving forward now in 2021, which we're looking as a re-energized year, if you will, in terms of moving our process forward. So let's see. Okay, there. So I'm going to skip. So in 2019, we started by supporting and growing affordable housing councils in Westchester and Kennett Square. We're actually actively continuing to work on that in Westchester. We hosted a Bridges Out of Poverty community training session. I think it was in October of that year at the church. We hosted the Chester County Planning Commission's Housing Task Force Affordable Housing Forum in November of that year. We established the New Beginnings Affordable Housing Fund in conjunction with the Chester County Community Foundation, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. We established relationships with several affordable housing developers actually at this point in Chester County. Continued our support of the Decade to Doorways initiative run by the Chester County Department of Community Development to eliminate homelessness in Chester County. We actually lobbied Senator Killen and advocated for 2 affordable housing bills, which were actually passed in the Pennsylvania legislature back in January of 2020. And obviously we supported and advertised and encouraged several work projects. The Women's Outreach Group in Phoenixville, we had a little project up there. Habitat obviously kept working, Good Works and Good Neighbors. In 2020, again, we continued to move forward in creating these affordable housing councils. The New Beginnings Attainable Housing Fund really was signed in early January or mid-January of 2020 and with the Community Foundation. And in 2020, we established a development committee. We now have a website up and promotional materials for the fund. We established a grant application committee and actually developed a process, an application process and a matrix scoring system so that when we get to the point where we have money in the fund that we can use to support projects, we've got a way to evaluate the different applicants. We've filled out our board. We have 4 people from Westminster on our board and 3 community members. And Bert Rothenberger and I and Beth Briglia from the Community Foundation have been meeting probably at least monthly, if not more often than that, with numerous organizations throughout the county to promote the fund. We've continued to support the Decade to Doorways project. And actually, I think they've now moved that forward into the next decade, if you will. We've started a discussion on potential church property development for some sort of attainable housing. And again, we've continued to support the Habitat, Good Works, Good Neighbors work projects, although Habitat has been shut down most of 2020, and I don't think they're quite back up and running yet. Somebody may know that better than me, but Good Works has been meeting and they've had safety protocols in place. I think they were even meeting in the fall of 2020, and Good Neighbors, I don't think they've been meeting yet because of the pandemic. So in terms of the future, I'm going to let Ruth pick it up from here. And she is the co-chair of the home team and plays a big role in some of these projects. So Ruth.
Thanks, Gary. What we're going to do is just give you a quick run through on, I guess it's probably 10 of the projects that we've been trying to keep alive during the pandemic. Obviously, as Gary said, some things will be able to be much more active once life gets to whatever the new normal is. But some of the things going on in our community are 2 of us are participating in the Bridges Out of Poverty Coalition efforts. There's an organization that does training and awareness work, trying to make sure community members, organizations, school teachers, etc., have a better understanding of the reality of what it's like to live in poverty. You know, you've heard probably in the news of some of the issues kids have had trying to do pandemic virtual schooling if they didn't have good internet or computers. This effort of awareness has been hard to keep going, but it is starting to open back up. In fact, in the borough of Phoenixville, or in the Phoenixville schools, they've been active in trying to do Bridges Out of Poverty training for over 600, I believe, teachers and school staff, which is great. Item number 2, we're once in a while, you do see weekly all the updates coming from Westminster, and when we get a turn, we try and put useful articles about the housing issue into the articles that come out from the church. The problem is that they come out all the time, and apparently Lynn George and so on can count how many people are actually scrolling all the way down those messages. So that's something for us to all keep in mind. We're trying not to overwhelm people with information. Phoenixville has had an incredible initiative in place for a number of years, which has been the Phoenixville Affordable Housing Council. This is something that involves the hospital board, some developers, council people, educators, and so on. And it is increasing the awareness of not only housing the people that work in restaurants and schools and so on, but also a lot of the housing that was developed in the past 10 to 15 years in Phoenixville was higher end. And so this council is working towards making folks aware of the need for other kinds of housing that are also safe and reliable. As a result of seeing the success up there, we're working on making the same kind of council possible in Westchester. There's a good initiative in place, and we've been working during the pandemic on this. As things open up more, we're hoping to be able to do presentations with organizations like Lions Clubs, etc., other organizations, to make sure people are aware of the struggle folks have who are college educated professionals who simply can't afford to live in the Westchester area. Item number 4, involvement with SCON, which is a somewhat similar organization for Southern Chester County. Same kinds of things are happening in that area where it's hard for a lot of people to find good, solid, safe housing. The Southern Chester County Network has got now a housing group, a housing discovery group. They have another group trying to work on ways to make transportation more effective for people to get to their jobs, because out here it's a little tough for some people to get to work. And that transportation may include ways to get affordable repairs to their cars. Sometimes it's looking outside the box at ways to make things work. Number 5, the New Beginnings Attainable Fund, Attainable Housing Fund at the Chester County Community Foundation. Gary mentioned that, and we're hoping when things once again open up that their presentations will be able to go full steam ahead. We'll start getting some money into that fund so that we'll be able to then look to making some grants to developers doing this kind of work. Number 6, connecting with area faith communities. The Westchester Area Religious and Spiritual Council has been on a pause during the pandemic. But Nick Tortorello, Denny and Paula Roberts were in connection with them before things kind of shut down, and have kept making little waves during the past year, and hopefully will be able to come up with some new ways to connect with people that will help them with their housing afterwards. Number 7, continuing to engage with Chester County Decade to Doorways, which is the initiative the county has to eliminate homelessness in this county. It was supposed to happen within a decade, but as all kinds of things have changed the last couple of years, it may move out a bit. And then number 8 is some more of the mentoring service that can help folks get ahead on their own, whether it's language, GED counseling, learning how to budget, learning techniques for working, mentoring services in general, not just having a house, but learning ways to successfully move ahead with your life. Okay, number 9, continuing to promote area housing projects. Of course, Westminster's been involved in this kind of thing over time. And we are imagining that there may be some more projects as things open back up. These organizations have been working. It's just been a matter of when projects have been available, and they may not have been publicized because maybe we needed to keep numbers down because of safety protocols, etc. The last item on our list is something I think you guys have all heard about already. And that is looking at all that property that we added onto the Westminster property on the south end mostly, but also a little tiny snippet along the western edge, considering a variety of options for the use of that property. We did a look back at all the work done during the vision process, and an awful lot of people had said it would sure be nice on that property to be the church by finding a way to house more people. There are a lot of ways that could be done. And so we have been talking to developers very, just hypothetically, to talk about what could be done on property that size and with that topography, and wondering whether it makes sense to move forward with any kind of recommendations to change it from a field to something else. So we are talking we've got a small planning team that is just looking at our options, and over the next couple months, we'll be trying to figure out whether we ought to take something forward to recommend that we do something. So those are the projects that are going on.
Thanks, Ruth. I'm going to stop the sharing now and give it over to the next presenter.
Thanks, Gary.
Okay, Terry, that would be you and Ken if you're ready, please.
Hello, everyone. How are you? It's good to see the familiar faces. I'm speaking to you from New Hampshire. We have moved, even though we still have a house down in Westchester. So I just want to let you know, we don't plant until June. We still have some snow in the yard. But anyway, I would like to review this quickly with you because I do not have a presentation for you. Terry, why don't you unmute a minute where I don't see you? Are you there?
I'm here.
There she is. I would like to go through this with you as we put this information out. Our key objectives were to increase the impact of the outreach and leveraging existing programs for our congregation. Another key objective that we refined from all of the work thank you, Gary, for leading us through that, was to connect people in multicultural and multi-generational opportunities and experiences. These were the key 4 areas that our vision team selected from the incredibly diverse serving our neighbors list that we got. We must have had 50 or 60 different ideas of what it means to serve our neighbors. We then also look at engaging with stakeholders in the local community to address current community crises. And there were 4 that we started with, and we boiled this down to 1. We had mental health, addiction, gun violence, and loneliness. And mental health and addiction tended to sort of fit in the same box. And it turned out that this became where we really felt that there was a complete hole in our outreach efforts as a congregation. We weren't doing much about either one of these things, mostly because of the stigmas that were attached to these issues. And so in order to connect people to ministries based on their life experiences and spiritual gifts, we thought maybe we should start at home with our own congregation on things like mental health and addiction. And that would lead naturally to serving our neighbors in a broader sense throughout the Westchester area. So we started with the addiction issues, and we wrestled initially with how in the world are we going to present this to a congregation that is a caring congregation, that does have deep roots in the community and has always served their neighbors in so many different ways. And we decided we had better educate the congregation first, educate ourselves as a vision team first, actually. And so we ended up, after some conversation, with a worship service in November, just before COVID hit. And I don't know whether you were all there, some of you might remember this, but the staff did a wonderful job in presenting what it meant to have a family member or a friend involved with addiction. The opioid crisis was raging at the time, and it still is, even more so now. And what are we doing as a congregation to deal with this? So we had a lot of plans to go into 2021 and 20 with this. And of course, COVID hit. So we had to re-gear a bit, but we did get started on the addiction process of dealing with it. We partnered with Chester County Drug Prevention Task Force, had 2 educational programs at the church to help understand what they were doing in Westchester to deal with this. We had a prescription drop-off for people to empty their extra outdated prescriptions that were in their bathrooms. It turns out this is a huge source of opioids that we don't even think about. We had an awareness Sunday. We made resource guides available for the pastors. These resource guides list all the different networks of addiction support that exist in the county. And it was important to get these guides in our pastors' hands if we got a call, and they have received calls from people, not only in our congregation, but people connected to our congregation. The grandchildren of some of the members of our church, the children of our members of our church, the neighbors of some of the people that are known about this. What do I do? How do I approach this? What am I supposed to do next? So this hidden crisis continues to roll out throughout our community, and we have found ourselves focused on that very strongly. And then COVID hit. So we decided, well, we're serving our neighbors, COVID's out there, what are we going to do to connect those 2 issues? And I'll tell you, Terry is a remarkable woman. She immediately shifted to figure out what are we going to do with the Westchester Senior Center. We got connected there through some of the members in our committee, and started to produce blessing bags. Do you want to explain what those are, Terry? What are the blessing bags to the Senior Center?
Sure. So the Westchester Senior Center closed down, as many agencies closed in Pennsylvania because of COVID. And so there was a need to feed that community who was coming and getting regular meals at the senior center. And so blessing bags were used by the Vine Ministry for some other local organizations. And so we took that on. And so it's just basically a meal. So in this paper bag, there was water and sandwiches and cookies and like fruit and those kind of things, to give food for, a day or so for them to survive on. And then in addition to that, so we were doing that like every other week. And then in addition to that, once they kind of transitioned to just doing the blessing bags for the people who were homebound. And, people were eventually able to start coming out to the senior center, which was still closed, but to get groceries, in a setup like a makeshift outdoor grocery store. And so we petitioned Westminster to donate canned goods and fruits and cheese sticks and all those kind of things, which we are still doing each month, to help them get through this time until the senior center can reopen.
And how many did we put together altogether? Do you remember
it was over, I want to say about 500 blessing bags, and then countless, every month, we've been taking at least 1 carload of groceries to the senior center. And I know that they've served, I think it was over, I don't have those numbers, at least over 20,000 meals since March of last year that we helped to provide.
Right. So related to that in some regard, we connected to CVIM, Community Volunteers in Medicine. Some of you may be familiar with them. And their need was gift cards because they serve an underserved community. And not only do they take care of their health and dental needs, but they can also hand out very important financial support to these families because they know who they are. They definitely have a solid, hardworking group of people that they serve. And so for a $50 gift card to Walmart, it goes straight to food and it helps to support a family. So we donated some money so they could continue to do this gift card program that they quietly do at CVIM. So there was another example of a local organization that isn't known for their work on financial support for families, but are trying to do just like we are, reaching out and doing more for the community that they serve. And thinking about serving our community, we also realized a lot of the small businesses in our church were struggling. So we featured congregational members and small businesses in some of the emails and communication that the church sent out, trying to help support and encourage people to continue to use our small business connections from inside our congregation. Of course, we made a whole bunch of masks for the congregation. I guess we're at the point now where everybody's got more masks than they know what to do with, but in the early days, we scrambled to make a bunch of masks. And we also decided that we had to do something to maintain our connection to what we were doing with addiction. So we put a lot of the mental health and addiction resources and webinars on Westminster social media pages, and have had mild interest in that. But this whole issue is very difficult to dig out. People don't want to talk about this. This is the kind of thing that is a real crisis that people just don't seem to want to focus on. So we're committed to do that, to get back into this as soon as COVID eases off. Let's see, we worked also with the Melton Center and Westchester Day Nursery. We did an endowment grant for that. Terry, you want to explain what we did with that? Hello, Terry. Are you? I don't think she's there anymore. Okay. Oh well, I will explain. We did get an endowment grant for the Melton Center and the Westchester Day Nursery. And we found an organization called Padres Latinos, which works out of the Westchester area school district. Very interesting support network for high school students that are experiencing crises at home. So we're connecting with that as well to see if there's a way that we can continue that relationship post-COVID. So in summary, our goal is to find holes in the community that are not being filled and to find out who we can task inside our church community to make this whole a network of things that we can support. One of the ideas that has recently surfaced, and the home team, I don't know whether we've contacted you about this, but we would like to advocate for a recovery home or a counseling center, whether that's done on our land or somewhere else, because recovery homes and counseling centers are still needed in this area. And sometimes the recovery homes are not the most popular thing to have in your neighborhood. So they're very hard to locate. And out in our field, it just might be one of those areas where it would be appropriate. The big disadvantage would be, of course, public transportation would be needed. So these ideas might have to go together. How would we get a public transportation loop connected to our land and still have a recovery center? I know that's not the main focus of what the home team's looking at, but it's been one of those things that we keep coming back to and seeing if we could ask for consideration to take a look at something like that. And that's pretty much our presentation. So thank you for being willing to listen to me babble on here. Any questions? Oh, that's right. We're going to wait to the end, right? Okay. Thanks. Next presentation, I guess.
Who's following Ken?
Is it me?
I think Joe
Joe and Laura?
got dropped off. Is it Laura?
Laura?
Yeah, I can go.
I'll put the screen up, chart
Yeah.
up for you. Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Ted.
Let's see, share screen. There we go. That's yours, Laura?
That be me. Thank
Okay. Yeah.
you. So equip our emerging generation. The goal of this committee, after much discussion, and I think we all can relate to this because we have young adults in our families, is we were losing the kids after they went to college, and we really weren't getting them back until after they had kids of their own. Most kids went off to college and did their own thing, and then the young adults that were still in our community that weren't married yet or newly married weren't really engaged as much as we would hope. So the goal was to try to re-engage them. So we started out with the first program, which has been, in my opinion, very successful and has plenty of room to grow, of course, but the College Connection program, where we have connected a member of our congregation with a college student that wanted that connection. We have everybody agree to it up front, where every month or two you communicate with this student in a way that's encouraging. It doesn't always have to be a faith-based discussion or message, but you do. I mean, I have 3 kids. I have a freshman, I have a sophomore, and I have a junior, and it's care packages. It might be little Bible verses you send to them. It's discussions of encouragement around finals time. If you know their families, some personal things about them that they might be going through, just to be a connection back to the church. And right now we have 33 kids that are involved in this, and each has an individual connector from our congregation that does this on a regular basis. And we will need volunteers for the upcoming class, and that we assume there'll be 15 to 20 new kids to join this in the fall. So if anyone is interested, we would love to have you join our group. It's actually a lot of fun. The kids seem to enjoy it. I mean, you actually develop a nice relationship with these young people and get to know a little bit about their school and what they're doing in their major and so forth. Another part of that program is that we have identified on all these college campuses that these kids are going to, the different religious organizations that are there, such as Young Life or Crew. Most schools have at least 5 or 6 organizations that are pretty well established. And so we find out who's in charge of them, how to contact them, what their mission statements are. And then we have been giving our students that we're connected to this information. So that has not probably been very successful this year because most of these organizations aren't allowed to do much. Although what is nice is that the religious organizations have been probably the only clubs on these campuses that were allowed to meet in person, because the colleges are not allowed to regulate what religious groups do. So this actually gave a lot of our kids an opportunity to go meet with other people in a safe environment, whether it be outside or what have you, where they could actually have some human contact during the time of a lot of isolation on these campuses. So that's been great. So please, if anybody's interested in joining us, get a hold of me, text me, call me, email me. We would love to have you join, because it's very enriching for anyone involved. So can't plug that anymore. The second thing, senior celebrations. We realized after discussion that a lot of our public schools, if not all of them, no longer have a baccalaureate service because it's considered a religious service. When I was a kid, we had one in my high school, and I just always assumed that they had them until my daughter went through graduation. I realized that our high school didn't have that. So last year, even during COVID, Chris and John put together a beautiful service that was done by Zoom. We had about 20 kids that participated along with their parents. And the goal is to continue that going forward. And hopefully this year we can actually do it in person. That is our goal, to make that happen. I'm not sure if it will, but we have till June to hopefully have the ability to have a group of about 20 to 25 to be able to congregate, or similar to how we had the outdoor services. We might be able to do that for them for this baccalaureate service. One thing we started last year, which was trying to make up for not being able to have the board in Spelman where we had the senior pictures and their bios. Lynn George was, as usual, phenomenal, and helped us collect senior pictures, high school senior pictures, and their bios of, what they were, where they were graduating from, what they plan to study in the future, any future plans, what they may be. And she posted them not only on our website, but also on Facebook and Instagram. And it was an immediate hit. And actually, we ended up getting more kids than we normally would. Usually the board in Spelman would have like 15, 20 pictures. I think we had over 60 kids posted this past summer, which was awesome. And everybody got to see them and comment on it. And we're going to continue that no matter what. I mean, once COVID is over, hopefully sooner rather than later, we will continue this in the future, because it really highlighted these kids in a much broader way. Their friends and family saw it from all over the country. So it was a good idea that happened by accident. So we're going to continue that. Last year we did the drive-by caravan celebrations, where we stuck a sign in their yard, which said, they were a Westminster member, and that we were celebrating them for their graduation. We probably won't do that this year, because we had a couple people almost get killed because Chester County is not exactly a drive-by friendly area because of all the hills and curves, and so we probably won't do that, but we're going to try to come up with something equally as fun to celebrate them. And we have a meeting this coming Monday to discuss just that. World Vision initiatives. We are also working with Expand Our Witness on these initiatives. We feel that this is working with the younger generation in general, and also it is expanding our witness across continents when you get to the discussion on the chosen, when I'll get to that in a second. But the first one is the Global 6K, which is coming up on May 22nd. We did this last year. And we raised over $44,000, and we had over 300 people on our team. Right now, we're challenging ourselves to surpass that and hit 50,000. And right now we have 102 team members to date for this year, and $9,785 as of today. So we're on track to do well, but we still need more members and more money. So again, anybody interested in joining this effort would be great. So the goal of this program, hey, I see Ted Strands. He's got his stuff there. That's the child he's sponsoring. For those of you who may not be familiar with this program or this initiative, apparently in communities where they do not have clean water, usually the women and the children are the ones that travel to get it. And on average, they have to walk 6 kilometers one way to get to a water source. And a lot of times the water source is not clean. So the goal is the money that is raised will be to bring fresh, clean water sources to these communities. And that's why the 6K is significant, that you walk, it's basically almost 4 miles. So you're realizing how far these women and children are traveling just to bring back water to their families. And this is just one way to get there. And then they got to carry it back, which is a heavier load on the way back. So apparently every $50 that we raise does sponsor clean water for one individual for life. So we can make a significant impact by doing this. And we do it virtually. Last year, we were going to try to do it at Oakbourne Park, but then when COVID hit, we had to cancel that. So everybody can just walk out their back door and clock out about a 3.8-mile walk. You could walk around your neighborhood 20 times if you wanted to. But that morning we actually have like a little pep rally on Zoom, and then everybody clocks in when they come back, and it's fun. Get a t-shirt. So again, if anybody's interested in joining that, please contact me or John Frost. John's really into it. He, I think, gets into this as much as he does baseball or football. So just so you know, it's a D1 sport for him, so he's into this. Also, The Chosen, which is a brand new program under World Vision and definitely new for us. We felt that this was also something we wanted to work with Expand Our Witness on, because it is definitely expanding our witness, where in past, when we have had children that we sponsored via World Vision, it was us choosing their picture and sending money into World Vision. This is the opposite. We have the opportunity to have a community connect with Westminster directly. We believe we are going to be hooked up with a community in Vietnam, according to John. He talked to World Vision the other day, and they send our pictures to them, and the children choose us. So there'll be 2 Sundays in August where the first Sunday is explaining to the congregation what's going on. And then there'll be hopefully we'll be in person by then. If not, I'm sure we'll come up with a way to do this virtually. But we will have our pictures taken. And then 2 of our ministers will travel to our community with our pictures and put them up around a community area of some sort. And then the children get to pick who they want to be their sponsor. So from that point forward, Westminster will be connected with this particular community, and we will have updates via World Vision, and we'll learn more about that as it gets closer. But right now, that's what we know so far. So we'll keep you posted on that. And Ted, do you mind taking me to the next? All right, thanks. Okay, and then also events for our young adults. Like I mentioned, we have a lot going on for high school, late high school, college kid age group so far. But also we have the young adult crew, which is the post-college kids that are single or maybe newly married. I mean, what are we doing for them? So a couple years ago in 2019, we had the Audrey Assad concert, which was definitely focused towards a younger generation. She's widely known among the early 20s crowd. And that was very well attended. We had over 400 people in attendance. And because it was so successful, John looked into another program like this. The Brilliance is another group that is apparently very well known by the younger generation. I had not heard of them, but my daughter-in-law, who is in her late 20s, was just thrilled to hear about it. And she was actually going to join them. She plays the violin, and she's played in a couple of concerts at Westminster. She was actually going to be a part of the program, but then that got postponed because of COVID. But we're hoping to have this happen again, or rescheduled for the fall. We're working on that right now, and John's in contact with David and John about that. So that is the more heavily planned programs. But in the meantime, other things that are being done is Thursday evenings, they were getting together with the young adults at places like Timothy's, or having brunch somewhere on the weekend, where they would have a group of about 15 to 20 young adults along with John and Chris to discuss either issues of young adulthood, early parenthood, or sometimes there was a Bible study. That did continue on into Zoom, but has not been consistent as of recent weeks, or I guess past couple months, as people's lives are starting to pick up again. So we're hoping that once things can be done in person again, the face-to-face opportunities will reoccur. And okay, so then we did a little bit of a review. Again, Gary gave us the slideshow of what everything was laid out to happen when the vision teams were set up. And so just our last meeting, we looked at, well, what did we say we were going to do, and what have we done, and what are we doing well, and what do we need to pursue going forward? So we felt like we were doing a pretty good job of strengthening our connections with the kids that are just heading out our doors, heading off into their lives in college, and whatever else they were planning for their future. But obviously we can continue to improve that. We do think we need to add college students. We already have young adults on our team, but we need to add college students right now because of the stress of Zoom and COVID and online learning, it really didn't make sense this year, but we are going to have some like guest appearances from some college kids at our May meeting and at our December meeting. And then maybe the following year, we may add one or two kids that really want to be a part of the discussion. And then we think we should need to develop more partnerships with the universities around us, such as Westchester, maybe Immaculata, you know, anyone who's around here that we could get involved with our clubs. We could offer up our space like Spelman or even the sanctuary or the chapel for their recitals or different programs so that we can get connected with these young people early that may not even be aware of us. And then we do need to find ways to connect with the families that do have young babies. I mean, a lot of times they come finding us because they want to have their child baptized, but there's got to be other ways that we can engage with them that we haven't thought of yet. So we're brainstorming a bit about that, and that's our growth opportunity for this next couple months. So in conclusion, anybody who wants to join any of these committees, we're welcoming you. Lots of work to be done. So.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Ted, if you still have that little screen of mine, you can flip it up there if you want to. And I'll try to be brief so you guys will have some time for questions as we move forward. You might notice I had to move out of the catacomb office up to my upstairs. I lost the connection, which doesn't happen very often, but I guess there's a good reason when you're way downstairs in the basement. So before you on the screen now is the initiatives that we had started with 2 years ago and still are involved in most all of these, except some have been pretty much sidelined or stopped because of the pandemic. But just mention those as I go along. Our InReach team, which was our really first great and fun success, was the fact that we were given the task of introducing the congregation to the kiosk and the name tags machine. So every Sunday we spent times at those kiosks training people how to use them and encouraging people to use them every Sunday with the hopes that all our members would wear a name tag and it would help us get to know one another better. And that surely was successful and was working until we stopped meeting in person. So we will get back to that pretty soon, I hope. We also had an additional worship team who worked very hard to determine an alternative time for worship that might be helpful to people that maybe can't attend some Sundays or Sunday mornings. And so a late Sunday afternoon, early evening service was started with a dinner, and it was very successful. It had pretty much probably an average attendance of just under 100 people each week for a series of 8 weeks. And then we were scheduled to begin again in the spring of 2020, and you know why that did not happen. So that again is one of those initiatives that's just had to stand by until things get back to what we hope will be a better and a new normal for us. Our diversity team had done quite a bit of research on local congregations to determine how we might work with other faiths and other ethnic groups to share in our faith. And we had several meetings with a couple of large, like St. Paul's Baptist Church. We had at least started the contact work with them when all things sort of stopped. One thing we've been able to do since last fall is make a new connection with an organization called the Andrew L. Hicks Foundation, which does quite a bit of work with the kids down in Chester, PA, helping them with their educational needs and just helping them with the everyday life experiences that they live in that very diverse community. So our hopes are to capitalize with some of our young people, as Laura just mentioned, especially maybe those group of young professionals or those are just out of college or working that might serve as mentors to help these young kids in Chester. And another thing we were able to do is work with our what do you call it? Endowment fund. I'm sorry. And we were able to help them and receive a grant of some $6,700 to help in their educational program, which is providing these children with some study study groups that help them pass the SAT test, not just take it, but help them understand it and be able to pass it. And that has been pretty successful for this organization. So we do hope to continue strongly with those people in Chester. Our community outreach team was somewhat involved in some of the things Laura has already mentioned, the Andrea Assad. If you'll remember, we had Philip Yancey as a speaker, and then we were waiting for the Brilliance to come when we had to cancel that. We also sponsored a sunflower celebration, which was, I always call it one of Don Lincoln's greatest ideas, because I just thought it was a super thing to think that we might put sunflowers all the way across the property of our church on the farm. And we did not do that because we understood that it would probably cause a lot of accidents on Route 202. So we did put it behind the church and surrounded the parking lot. And last year had hoped to have it in the back corner and have a larger field there, but the deer ate all the sunflowers before they even got a foot off the ground. So sunflower celebration has kind of been a joke. When I mention it in the session, everybody knows that what are you going to try to do this year? And so I'm not sure what we're going to do this year, because we're not doing a lot of things that we had planned, but it doesn't look like we're going to have sunflowers. But hopefully we'll get back to that at some point. It was really a lot of fun, and just a great way to celebrate and open our property up to the community to come and enjoy the beauty of God and enjoy the sunflowers. One of our most successful initiatives has been the senior group. Nancy Christie's here with us today. Gloria Ballinger have been very instrumental in the success of this program. And when we started 2 years ago, we sort of had a senior team that did a lot of calling to primarily the seniors who are 80 years or above. I think we have around 200 of those members. They initiate a program of calls and checking in, and that has just really caught on and grown into what we call a senior connection. They asked for volunteers, and I think they have up to 70 volunteers now who have volunteered to a couple of times a year make sure that they stay in contact with the seniors, check in on them, see how they're doing, send them birthday cards, Easter cards, Christmas cards, those sort of things. And it's just been a really big success. And from that group, they've now started an email group, a senior email group, who share with their thoughts and ideas. And it goes to Ted Strand right here, and he's the coordinator, the facilitator, who shares the emails. And if there are things they want to share or sell or talk about, he kind of coordinates that effort with all the group that's involved in that. We also initiated back in August a way to help a lot of these seniors who do not have access to internet or any type of form to get to where they can live stream. So with a little creative thought process, we figured a way to do this with help of Lynn George and others, that we could have these seniors call in like they were going to join a Zoom call or a Zoom, just like we are, but not on a computer, just on their telephone. So they call into a number that we have. Ted Strand helps us with this. My wife, Christina, helps us with this. And we have the live stream up on our computers, and then we share our screen, not that they can see it, but they can hear it. And so we have 15 or so seniors who join us. We have about 11 who join us regularly. And we have at least 3 or 4 who are in their 90s that I don't think have missed a Sunday since August. They're very appreciative and just thrilled to be able to at least hear our worship services, partake of communion once a month when we have communion services. And that has just been a blessing as much to us as it has to them. We have a prison ministry team that this is an interesting story. Early in 2019, I got a call from the ladies who were sponsoring the Global Leadership Conference, and they asked me, because they knew we were expand our witness, if we could get them into prison where we could present the Global Leadership Conference to the prison. And I said, sure. And then I hung up the phone and said, how in the world are we going to do this? And that was like on a Tuesday. And next Monday, we were sitting in the warden's office at the prison because Bill Davis, who was co-chair with me at that point, knew the chaplain and called the chaplain, and he got us right in to talk to him. And we were received very well. And we began some programs with them and some big plans with them, which all were stopped. And COVID restrictions at the prison right now are really high. So it doesn't look like that's going to loosen up real soon. But one thing we did for a while, we can't do it anymore, but we just had a note card ministry. And once a month, we would collect cards and get volunteers to help us send notes of encouragement to the inmates in the prison and make sure that those were delivered to the prison and distributed. So that was at least one thing we could continue to do, and we will resume that once we are able to do so. One of our other big initiatives that we just had a hard time getting off the ground was streaming and increasing our witness to an audience who can receive our services by streaming, or to new residents who are moving into the area. So we have finally got, even with COVID, we have finally taken the steps through social media and even through the mail to try to reach additional people. And if you don't know this, I think it's very interesting that we have had, I know of 2 families who have joined our church because they participate by a live stream. One just very recently who live in Pittsburgh. So they probably never be able to be here, but I think they are going to move here in a few years. But that's the witness that this live stream is providing throughout the world. Actually, there are people who tune in every week from, especially all across the country, who are family or friends of our members and know about us, or people who have just run across this wonderful opportunity for worship via live stream. So we're trying to capitalize on that audience. And even when we do come back in person, we'll still be live streaming. And we hope to maybe just create a virtual church out there with opportunities for worship, opportunities for fellowship, opportunities for study, of people who may never step in this building, but will be able to worship and feel closer to God because of these services. So our objective here is not to necessarily increase the membership of Westminster, but to expand our witness to the world through whatever medium it takes to get it out there. The world is changing, and church has got to do some things different. So this is certainly something that was a great opportunity for us to do that. So, and it gives us the opportunity to ask the congregation in many of these initiatives and all of our groups to ask for help, to ask people who feel moved by some of these initiatives to be a part of it with us, to volunteer and to call a senior a couple of times a year, or be a part of a worship team, or be a part of the prison ministry, or any of these other opportunities that our groups have explained to you this morning. So we're grateful and thankful to be here with you. And I'll ask you now, if you have any questions, feel free to ask any of us on the team, and we'll be glad to stay with you as long as we can. So thank you for letting us be here.
If anyone has a comment or a question to make to Joe or any of the other members of the team, just unmute yourself and raise your voice.
I'll give a comment and a question. first of all, thank you all for all of the terrific work you're doing. It's really very impressive. My question is for Gary or Ruth in terms of the potential development of our property. Can some of that preliminary work continue even with the announcement of the timing with, with Don's retirement, or will that be on hold?
Good question, Dan. We think it will continue. I had a discussion with Don briefly recently, and we think it's such an important initiative for the church that even with Don moving on, and he's still going to be here another year and 3 months or thereabouts, that we can continue forward. We don't see any reason at this point to stop that process, at least as gathering information and facts about what's possible.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll follow Dan's question up with a similar one. Ken Ballinger mentioned recovery centers. Gary, you mentioned, possibly affordable housing on some of the church property. One of the problems with that is location. I mean, one way it's great, we have beautiful property. On the other hand, it's hard to get to. There's not much public transportation. So if anything we do with development of the property along those lines, I think we're going to really have to look into how we would transport people if we brought them there, and how they'd get to their jobs, or how they'd shop and all that sort of thing. So it's not just good enough to put up the places, it's also how do they function and how do they become members of the community to some extent.
Yeah, Nick, you're right. But there's no, some of the developers we've actually talked to have talked about the transportation issue, and it partly depends on the type of housing is built, the age group and thereabouts. So that's something that's being, will be looked into as we move further down the road. I don't think there's much of a leg for us to stand on right now until some development happens, either with the Craybilly property or with potentially our property, because I just think that we'd fall on deaf ears vis-a-vis SEPTA, et cetera. But that is something that, is kind of in the hopper, so to speak. With regard to the community center, if we proceed with the housing concept, the affordable housing concept, we have to be very careful. Terry and I had some discussions on this, and Ruth the last week or so, about making sure that any residents in that particular project are included in whatever offerings we might make for the greater community, if you will. Most affordable housing projects are financed through tax credits, which is administered by the Pennsylvania Housing Finance Authority. And there are very strict guidelines and rules about opening up one of these communities to outside people, if you will. So that's something that we need to be very careful about and cognizant about, because even after the project might get financed on the front end, there are annual and biannual audits that need to happen to make sure that the tax credits are still being appropriately used, if you will. So.
Yeah, the other thing, Gary, was you mentioned you helped to get 2 pieces of state legislation on affordable housing passed. What did that legislation say?
I think it opened up more funding, Nick, for some of the affordable housing programs in the state. It wasn't specific to Chester County, but it was more state oriented.
Thank you.
And Wilcox, let me commend you, man. I'm blown away by all your work, and your presentations are wonderful. Let me say 2 things. One, I don't sing, I don't dance, but I can talk and I can write. So do you have a way of getting people involved more in terms of communication. I do it in other ways I was before the pandemic with the extended community people. But do you have a methodology for getting people involved in using their gifts in this way?
If I understand your question, we very may have a lot more opportunities in either through social media or email with the group that we're trying to reach out who are members of our live stream group. A lot of those people, we don't even know who they are yet, so we're investigating that. But if that would be of interest to you, maybe that's an area you could really be a great service.
I'm saying it's a way that people can be involved, I think.
Make sure I get your name and email so I could stay in contact with you, please. Or Ted, if you can send that to me, that would be nice.
Yeah.
You're the tech guy, so you could do that, right? Thank you.
Yeah.
Before the pandemic, I think there was a group that went down to Broad Street Ministries in Philadelphia. And do you foresee that picking up again sometime? Is that on any of the team's to-do list?
Seems like I did that for about a year when I first came to Westminster, and then things changed. They didn't have that. I think it was Saturday morning breakfast for the group, and they sent that somewhere else. So that was an outreach project, I think, Terry. So maybe you probably know better than I do.
Yeah, as far as I know, some of their programs have changed, and so we're just waiting to be asked to, be involved again once opportunities present themselves.
Thank you.
I can add a little bit to that. We started getting more involved with the Bridge Academy in Coatesville, and having our sorry about that, having our youth serve there, and we had some of our young adults serve there as well. Hopefully that will start up again, because they actually shut down the opportunity for volunteers to continue to come for obvious reasons. But we do intend on getting back involved with them when things open up again, and hopefully by the fall semester that'll be the case. So
good.
Yeah.
I have a question for Laura Davis. How do you say you're looking for volunteers to connect with the Westminster College students? What do these volunteers do with the college students? Do they talk to them each month, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's usually every 4 to 6 weeks. It's usually, everybody kind of does their own thing. There's no strict rules. I communicate via letters or texts sometimes a phone call, a little care package around finals time, which has their favorite snack in it, maybe an inspirational book. I know Gail Lee is the connector for my daughter, Olivia, and she just sent her the Dana Perino book recently. Everybody has like a different touch when you know what their major is. One of my girls is a nursing student, so I send her something that's nursing related. But it's really just to keep them aware that someone back home cares and is interested in them and their spiritual growth. So it's about every 6 weeks, I would say, is on average. And it's very fulfilling. So if you're interested, would love to have you.
Yeah, I'd be interested.
Okay, Craig. All right. Well, I will keep your name. We're going to probably connect. We're going to find out which high school students that are going on to college or staying around here doing other things too that would like a connector. We'll know that by mid to late May. So we'll probably contact you then. Yeah. Thank you.
Can I ask one more? Something that comes to mind here is the Crivelli Farm situation. I'm not sure what it is. I'm not sure if anyone does, but that obviously will change our venue and our opportunity or ways of communicating. So Is there anything new on that to report, and how does that affect what each of you guys do?
Yeah, I'll take a crack at that. I mean, Craybilly, as everybody knows, is in the, I don't know, third stage of going through the Westtown Planning Commission reviews. Ed McFalls has been probably the best person in touch with that from the church's perspective. It's in all likelihood, Craybilly is going to go back to the courts. That's not a done deal yet, but I think Westtown is probably going to find some reason to actually even reject the current plan that's been put forth by Toll. Whether that happens or not is still a big question mark. Although I personally think it will ultimately happen. Something will happen. The timing is a big issue. As it relates to what we do, yes, it will have an impact. There's issues related to the Craybilly project that will impact our property in terms of connector roads, the ability to connect to connector roads, from any portion of our property for that matter. There's also anything we do right now or anything we would propose right now, we as a church are not zoned for any kind of a housing situation. So, and we knew this, we knew this for years. So we ourselves obviously have to go to Westtown and get a zoning change, which there was a small group that did go to Westtown. I was not part of it last year. And they basically said, come back to us when you have a project in mind and we'll talk. It is on Westtown's long-term planning program, I guess, to have some sort of, or to create affordable housing opportunities in the township. But again, whether that, when the metal hits the road, whether that happens or not, that's one of the big hurdles. And everybody we've talked to from a developer perspective understands that. They know that. They're all versed in working with townships. We're several years away from any kind of project probably even being started at this point. And part of that will tie into the Craybilly issue to some degree. So yeah, I don't know if I answered your question there, but.
As well as it can be answered, I think, yes.
I'm wondering if the Serving Our Neighbors group is going to be working with the Chester County Food to continue the monthly collections of food items that we had at the church.
Thank you, Nancy. At the time we were doing the work with the senior center, our reason for doing that was that was something new and an immediate need during COVID. We obviously want to continue the food programs that we have, but that's always been part of the outreach committee. So what we're trying to do is go out and beyond what outreach does. So it's really not a vision team issue per se to continue something that we've always been doing. I'm not trying to duck the answer. I'm just trying to say our focus is on doing things we aren't doing.
I just wondered because the church has been
yes.
For the senior center, but the collections we always did for the Chester County Food Bank on a monthly basis seem to have dwindled.
I'm sure they have, because we just haven't had the ability to collect like we normally would. And I'm sure we're going to resurface that as soon as we're back in church.
Thanks, Ken.
Anybody else have any other questions? If not, I want to thank our speakers for a terrific job.
Great.
I know we all appreciate getting brought up to speed in terms of what's been going on and where we're at this point. It's going to be interesting to see once we're back seeing each other in person, how quickly things take off again. And as we know, the change with Don, and there'll be other changes because of Don leaving. Some of these things can get put on the back burner. But let's all try to keep it on a front burner, because I think all these initiatives are extremely important. And they're certainly important for the health and the morale of the congregation. So I hope things keep going forward, and I hope the work continues, because it's been terrific to this point. And I think it'll even be stronger when we're back seeing each other live and in person. But I thank you all for giving so much time. And the fact that people stayed on almost an extra half hour shows the deep interest that the congregation has. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you all.
Great
Thank you,
job.
guys.
Great job.
For having us.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.